Hey everyone, my name is Mike Aubry. I'm one of the technology evangelists here on the Autodesk Fusion 360 team. This is a video today for the AutoCAD users that are looking at Fusion for the first time. I'm an AutoCAD user myself. I learned originally in AutoCAD 2000, but I've been on the Fusion 360 team since it was first founded in 2013. And the Fusion workflow has been one that I've really grown to love and embrace and just get so much productivity and effectiveness out of. I wanted to make a video to help anybody else that's checking out Fusion, but coming from the AutoCAD standpoint, a set of things that are really similar that you're going to recognize and make that be your foundation. Whether you're an old school AutoCAD guy from R9 or you started using in the 80s, or if you're you took a little bit of high school AutoCAD and you're looking for something that's that's not AutoCAD, this video should be good for you because it'll speak in terms of things that you probably are already familiar with. So let's get stuck in. What you're looking at here is a part that I picked specifically because it was originally an AutoCAD design. This part was designed originally as part of a tutorial by a guy named SaberCAD, who's got one of the more popular AutoCAD 3D videos on YouTube. I picked it because he does a really nice job walking through. It's a very polished video. It's a really nice overview of how to appropriately model things within AutoCAD. So this is going to be a really nice apples to apples workflow of some ways to, this is probably what you're familiar with if you're doing 3D AutoCAD right now, and then jumping back and creating it in Fusion. So so if you want to see AutoCAD, watch this video. If you want to see mine on how we do it in Fusion, watch this. I'm going to start from scratch on this by making a new design. The way we create 3D models in Fusion is we start off actually by making 2D sketches of the profiles we'd like to extrude. And so that's what this create sketch option is. We'll choose that, and then imagine like a piece of wax paper that sits on top of a table. We'll actually apply a sketch over top of one of these planes. Usually it's one of your origin planes that are shown here, your XY, your YZ. I'll actually click and put that over top of the XY one. And then I'll just go to my top view. So there's your view cube like you'd have within AutoCAD. And we'll start creating our profiles. So the profiles is made with geometry that you're already familiar with coming from AutoCAD. So things like your rectangles, your arcs. The iconography is very similar, if not exact, on many of these items. The way you apply them is slightly different. We don't have a command line anymore, but a lot of that explicit entry style of creating geometry is still within Fusion. So like for instance, if I go and start my rectangle here from the origin, good modeling best practice. Even though I don't have a command line, I can still be really precise from the get-go how big I want this rectangle to be. So I'll just go and say I'd like this to be 64 millimeters, hit the tab key, and make my horizontal geometry 96 millimeters, hit enter, and I have exactly the right size rectangle to start building from. Another thing to notice is that it added the dimensions. So these dimensions are different than what you'd see common dimensions within AutoCAD. These are more analogous to what we'd call power dimensions in AutoCAD, and that they're parametric and that you can drive the geometry from them. So like if I go and I make this thing 50 millimeters, notice how the geometry updates. If I go and I put it back, everything moves. This is super powerful. It makes editing so much easier. So as you get into Fusion, you'll really begin to love these dimensions. So definitely don't shy away from adding them. It's actually best practice to make sure you add dimensions to all of your geometry. As you're getting started, though, you can make highly accurate and precise models with or without dimensions. Another way to do this is you can actually use your grid settings to make it so that that the geometry is accurate to whatever you need it to be at. What you'll notice here is I have an adaptive grid. So as I zoom out, you'll notice that the increments are in 50 millimeters. As I zoom in, they get more and more precise. This is the default setting there. So if I wanted something to be 16 millimeters off, if I just zoom in a little bit and go 5, 10, 15, 16, add a line. So here's 16, and you just you move up. I don't need a dimension. I can just go and measure it, and we'll show that yeah, this is actually 16 millimeters apart. So that's really common way to model things up in AutoCAD. AutoCAD users like to know that their lines are aligned to where they want them to be from the get-go, and that's what this grid allows you to do. In addition to that, you can go in and you got trim and extend. Those are still options you have coming from AutoCAD. So here I'll trim these away, make it so it's in the right place. In this case, this part actually, a lot of the dimensions are divisible by 4. So if the adaptable grid isn't doing it for you, what you can do is go in and change your grid settings. So that's what's right here. Go and change that from adaptive to fixed. And so I'll just go with my major being 16, my minor being 4. Then you can go and start adding other stuff. So like this 16 right here, one of the things you'll notice is that it won't snap if you're hovering over a line. That's a little different from AutoCAD. It's really easy though. You just go in there and say, well, this is going to be 12. You move it a little bit past, hit escape, hit T. That's trim, and you're perfect. That's going to be 16 away. So it does feel a little different, but it's the basic foundation of how you guys create geometry isn't really changed that much. Some other stuff in here just to kind of keep modeling. As you get more familiar with the way Fusion thinks, you will gradually start to move away from using grids. You'll actually start just building geometry, and then you'll dimension it later. So let me show you kind of how where you'll get to. Is what I'm doing here is I'm just going to create some basic geometry, and then I'm going to go dimension it later to see how it behaves. So I'll go in and I'll add just an arch here, and then I'll go and I'll add a line. And what I'm creating here is geometry that's not necessarily it's not dimensioned, but it is constrained, and that I'm choosing how I want the geometry to behave. That's what these little icons are. If I hover over this is actually a horizontal constraint. This is a tangency constraint. Check this out. If I go and I make a line here, that's that little horizontal constraint there. I can't move it, so it's horizontal. It's always vertical. If I delete this, now I can move it. If I move it here, and let's add another line, I can add a constraint. So there's no constraint right now other than that they're coincident, they're touching. But I can actually go in and call this, I'd like this to be perpendicular to this line. And now I have an icon that shows that. So I can move it. And so, yeah, so these little constraints you have right here can determine how your geometry behaves. And they're really powerful. It's a little bit extra thought than what you'd have sometimes in just your regular AutoCAD stuff. But what it gets you is I can go and when I add my dimensions, it makes things a lot more editable. So like if I go and just add this one, we know this one's accurate, I already put it in the right place, but I can go and add this, which I know is wrong. But now when I go and make it 40, everything updates the way I would expect it to. It's behaving the way I want it to. I can go and say I'd like this to be 22 offset. Behaves great. I'm going to move this little friend over here. We'll say this is going to be 16. And we'll say this is going to be 16. And this distance is one that's 20. See how you can really get going on this stuff really fast. It doesn't take long. And we'll say this is from here to here. That's 12. And before you know it, we've got a nice foundation that we can start creating our model from. So next thing we need to do is we need to add some depth to it. We need to make it 3D. And so what I'll do is I'll go back to my home view, and we'll extrude them out. And so the extrusion is actually what we call for our feature. There's a whole bunch of different options to create geometry. That's what this extrude is. I want to show you another tool here. It's actually called press pull, which actually merges a couple of these different creation tools that we have. So what we'll do here with this press pull is it'll actually do the extrude for us, and then we'll use it later actually to make a fillet. It's a nice kind of general all-purpose tool, really handy. So as I'm extruding out this what looks like an H, I need this thing to be 16 tall. It's actually going on increments of 5. If I zoom in a little bit, I can make it so it'll go, and now it's going in 1. So that's actually the snaps that's going in as a function of how far you're zoomed in. So now we're at 16. That's perfect. And now I have my H, and the sketch disappears. That's no big deal because we can go into our folder here and just turn it back on. So much like the same way AutoCAD uses layers, we use the same light bulb to talk about visibility for the various things you'd have over here in our browser. So we'll go and turn back on the sketch, and we'll just create the rest of our features. So we'll extrude out these profiles here. I'll just go in and use that same press pull again. Choose U and U. And these are going to go up to a distance of, it's going to be the 16 and then plus this 28. So I'm actually going to write that in right here. 16 plus 28 millimeters. And you'll see that now it's all the same part. And I'll just take this as well. I'll right click and repeat the process, that repeat press pull. It's also, if you just right click, it's always right there anyway. Move this up again. This is a little bit higher. So it's going to be 16 plus 48. So 16 plus 48. And there's our pieces. And let me turn off that sketch so we can just see it. And we're on our way. So we still need a couple of things here. We need the fillet, and we need this chamfer here. So there's a couple ways to create these. The fillet's really easy. we can just go and actually, if you choose this edge here, remember that press pull, you can use that to make fillets as well. So I'll just fill it, just kind of create this and then pull it in. This is going to be a 32, so we'll actually call it that, 32. And it creates a fillet for us. And then to create this shape, I can actually create a cross-section sketch, or I can do a chamfer. I'll show it, let me show it both ways. I'll go, if I choose this edge right here, press pull is going to want to make a fillet, but actually you can make a chamfer right here just by hovering down here. And it's not going to be an equal distance one. That's not going to get us what we want. So what we actually want to do is a distance plus angle. So we'll actually go out to this surface here, and then we'll bump this up, and that's looking pretty good at 35. So that's one way to create it. The other way to do it, actually, if I undo my chamfer, so there's undo, Control Z, Control Y, or undo and redo, by the way. The other way you can do it is you actually can go and create a new sketch on this plane right here. And so we're talking about these wax paper. Now I'm actually going to put on this face. This is pretty handy. You just go on here, and then I'll say this, make a line. Just kind of click on this point to this point, and then extrude it. Just get rid of it. We'll just go, let's just say this way, and you can see that we're creating. In this case, the red says we're taking away. So that's another great way to do that shape. To make this hole, what we got to do is we do need to make a sketch on top of here, or we can make a circle here. It's kind of your choice if wherever you want it to be. I think actually I showed you extrude, so let's, instead of extruding a hole, let's show you revolve here. I'll create just a sketch on top of this face right here, and actually we'll get to a nice overhead view. The other way you can do it, actually down here, you still have your look at, your pan, tabs, all these things. So look at this face. It's a handy way to do it. And we'll go ahead and I will snap it actually to that midpoint. You see that triangle that appears? There's a midpoint from there. And then I want this to be, just make a line right here. That distance is going to be, where is that radius? It's going to be 24, so 12. So dimension, by the way, D is your hotkey for dimension. Here's 12. Stop my sketch, go back out, and then we're going to use this profile. Actually, under create, there's an option to make a revolve. We'll choose that. So we got this profile here. I'm going to choose my axis is this. See that nice little preview of what it's going to do? And we've got a really nice looking part. Another question I get from AutoCAD users is asking, can you make it look a little bit more like the AutoCAD modeling space? And that's actually under your display settings, under your environment. If you go to dark sky, I hate this, by the way, so if you ask me and you're in dark sky mode, I'm not going to help you. But if you want to have the black background, that's it. And then, yeah, have fun with that. Anyway, that's the black background. But yeah, the one, if you'll notice, most of our tutorials and a lot of our support documentation, our standard is photo booth. So that's the one that you'll want to be in if you want to be like the way a lot of the tutorials and stuff are set up. They just get used to using photo booth. It's not that bad. The next thing I want to share with you kind of before we go is a couple of extra power tools that I think are really handy for people coming from AutoCAD. The first one is I'd be riffed if I didn't tell you about the S key. So what the S key does is if you're really missing your command line about now, if I go and if I hit the S key, you'll notice there's an option here to go and look up different tools that you have at your disposal. So like if I don't know where the rectangle is, I can just write in rectangle, and there's the option. I can say, oh, there's my 2-point, thank you. So I'll go and say from here to there, and that's exactly what I was looking for. If I hit the S key again and say I don't know where the arch is, say I'd want this, there's my 3-point arch. It's great. All that option is just all right there. S key, project, where's that? So I can project these surfaces. So I'll pull it in. Now I've got my profiles. Everything that you have in your sketch, your create, your modify is all at your disposal within this S key. Furthermore, it can be customized if you're always using the same things over again. So like say I'm doing a lot of slots, I can actually make it so that this overall slot is just part of my S key. So then I go back and say like, man, I really need to have a slot right here. You just go hit S key slot, and there's your slot. If you haven't made a slot in 2 weeks, well, no big deal. You just drag it and remove it. So you can customize, build these things up, drag them down as you don't. It's all right there, and it's a really efficient part of the tool, and you're going to find a lot of similarities between that and I think one of the ways a lot of you probably were using the command line anyway. Final tip for you is before we kind of keep building stuff here is the way we select things. Crosses and windows. That's a very AutoCAD thing. Notice how we go upper left, lower right. It's red. Upper right, lower left. It's green with some hashes on it. That determines what gets selected. So like if I go this way, everything that's 100% within that box gets selected. It's only the arch. Nothing else gets deleted. If I go this way though, it selects, gosh, the profile, the lines, everything. If I delete that, the only thing that survived was this because it wasn't touching that original box. So as you're going to select things, use that because you guys are probably already familiar with how that works coming from AutoCAD. So here I'll just delete that and we'll move on. So now that we have our 3D part modeled up, the next thing to do is get 2D documentation from it. So we differentiate in the Fusion environment between our Fusion models and our drawings. It's similar to the way AutoCAD would call it paper space and modeling space. And so what we'll do here is I've saved my part. I went ahead and hit save. And I'm going to now create a new drawing from design. So I'll choose my standard, my units, and then we'll pull in this F3D file and create our views from it. So here's our paper space. We'll go and choose what the scale is going to be, say 1:1, turn our tangency on, and then there's our base view. And then we'll go and we'll make our projected views. So you just go and click this view, and then go and choose you. You can choose your top view, side view. Here's an ISO view you just get for free. Listen. Back into this and turn off my hidden lines. Turn it back just to visible. Really easy to update. But let me show you what we do. I mean, the big thing is your dimensions. They're pretty easy to do. We just go in and then there's one. Here's our there's the radius in this. If you want to do things like baseline dimensions, we support that. So like there's our base. Choose your baseline dimension. Go here, 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 here. Pull this down a little bit. Angular dimensions, you just go and choose, here's an edge, and there's your specified angular dimension. You can choose your tolerances, these things. So we go and actually choose, this is going primary. You go down to 1, you can go all the way out to 4, you're way out there. If you want to have the type, if they actually want to say a deviation of this, plus or minus a degree, you can call that stuff out. So that's all there. Should move you out. There we are. You also have the options for things like section views, detail views, all that stuff's in there. What we don't have yet, in all irony, is we do not have 3D annotations yet. That's something that'll come in the future. But when you're done, you're ready to send this thing out. You can output it either as a PDF, send it to somebody, or you can output it as a DWG. It goes out to AutoCAD 13 or 2013, excuse me, format, and that's your 2D environment. My hunch is at this point you're probably feeling a tad overwhelmed. That's fine. That is very common. There is definitely more for you to learn. When you get a chance, the final thing I want you to do before we break in this thing is make sure you guys know where to get help. There's a couple places to go. The first one is the Learn Fusion 360 option here. This button right here. Pumped a lot of time into coming up with some really intuitive first getting started activities based on what it is you're trying to do, whether you're trying to sketch stuff, whether you're trying to get in geometry from different CAD tools, modeling, assembly, like when we start to create parts, that's important, how you manage files. There's a lot of different steps right here to help you guys get started with Fusion. They're general in nature, but they are good. We pumped a lot of time into them. Let us know what you think. That's the first area I want you guys to know. The other one is, as you're getting started, use the getting started option here. So this should have been turned on by default when you first started off. If you've turned it off, maybe turn it back on, because this has a lot of stuff, just some of the quick things about, how do you change your units? How do you how do you set things up to be on defaults from some common CAD tools? Basically everything except AutoCAD and all irony. But basically what's pan, what's zoom, what's orbit, and then some ways to just kind of start creating. This will also help you out. And the final place to go as you're going around is, remember, we have a really active and passionate community. Goes in this, it is actively curated by thousands of Fusion members and members of the actual Fusion 360 employee group here at Autodesk. So as you have questions, depending on what it is you're looking for, this design, validate, and document section, it's a really powerful place to go and share and ask for help. Don't suffer in silence. Use our forum. There's a lot of people that are participating here, and come be a part of the community. So with that, everyone, I hope this was really valuable to help you kind of get started in coming from AutoCAD using Fusion. I had a lot longer list than this of things that I've found similar between the different environments, but I decided just to focus in on the sketching side of things, and I hope it was valuable for you. And have fun designing. Take care.